Well, Jets fans, we are in the thick of it now. The playoffs are right around the corner, the trade deadline has come and passed, and the Winnipeg Jets lineup is set. Outside of injuries, God forbid, this is the lineup that the Jets are going to be rolling going into the playoffs. And we can finally start to really gauge this team and see how they adapt the lineup, and play through areas that, they have had weaknesses in, with that second line center spot and other areas where they've had inconsistencies throughout the season. Even though they've been elite and dominant, we can still look at this year and still see, flaws in this team, because let's be real, hockey is a team sport, and unless you have a team of amazing, perfect players, sometimes there are going to be flaws. That's just the way that this sport is, and the key to the sport is how you can adapt and overcome those issues and work as a team to win hockey games. And honestly, when I look at this Jets lineup, the thing that I'm most excited for, for this final stretch, is to see how well these new additions mesh, because these new additions are depth pieces. They're not these big difference makers that we wanted to see going into the trade deadline. We talked about so many potential options that the Jets could look at, and I, for one, was heavily on the side of going all in quotations, I guess you could say. Spending everything you have, getting the elite players, and adding to this team. And, you end up getting a Braden Shed and a Brendan Tanev instead. And while those trades I still think are very solid and, good acquisitions for this club, I think watching these guys gel over the next couple of weeks is going to be really important come playoff time, because now that Stanley is out of the lineup, how will, Luke Schenn play on that third pairing? How will Tanev play on this fourth line? Will this new fourth line with Morgan Barron stay the way that it is? The trade deadline, we had a lot of questions going into it. We really did, and we thought Chevy was going to, cook up a storm and really make some amazing, crazy trades, and we end up getting, I would say very minor depth moves that are still really solid, but at the end of the day, like I said, this lineup is set, and the price tags that the Jets paid to bring in these depth pieces showed that these were the guys that they wanted to bring in, in Luke Schenn's case especially. This is a guy with a term, he's going to be here come next year, barring another trade in the offseason. They like Luke Schenn. They want Luke Schenn on this team, and they're a guy that they're happy to have and ice going into next season, most likely. And that is a big commitment to him. And I think that watching him gel in that third pairing is going to be really important to see. And I think that if that third pairing can become more consistent with Schenn now, and, going forward, you can find more stability, because Logan Stanley is out of the lineup. Like that is a great thing. Logan Stanley has been finally pushed out. He's an extra defenseman. He's not going to be making those stupid mistakes every night, and we can maybe finally get some extra reliability on that back end and roll out 3 consistent pairings, because, Logan Stanley is not that guy. And I know Luke Schenn's analytics aren't there, but bear in mind, he's been playing on Nashville for most of this year, and Nashville was a terrible team, and is a terrible team. So I think when playing those guys together makes no sense, and they've already pushed him out. Logan Stanley in particular, they've pushed him out. You already have Colin Miller as well as your extra defenseman who you can play on that third pairing, who has been reliable pretty much all over that third pairing with different partners over the year. And tonight we saw Hayden Fleury playing out there with Luke Schenn on that third pairing, and I really, really liked that third pairing tonight. I thought that they looked really good, and then I think that as well as having Ville Heinola, we'll forget about him right now, but when you look at the depth chart for defense, it's pretty solid. Honestly, you have a lot of reliable guys that you can slot into that bottom third pairing, and obviously you could have went out there if you were Chevy and made some crazy trade to bring in some amazing number 2, number 1 defenseman if a guy like that somehow became available, but or elite top 6 guy to really cement that second line, especially on the center position. But instead you go with Brendan Tanev, because Brendan Tanev is an electric player, and what we're seeing from Brendan Tanev already is he's really igniting the bottom 6. The bottom 6 is playing with a lot more speed, a lot more tenacity. They're really getting in on the forecheck more. You're seeing more goal opportunities being created from that bottom 6 that really hasn't had a lot of that throughout this year. Defensively, they've been very sound and reliable, but they haven't had that spark, especially a guy like Morgan Barron. Yeah, he really just hasn't had it this year and has really just had bad luck offensively. But I think that if you can get that bottom 6 going, and with the injection of a guy like Tanev, now you have the flexibility of taking Appleton off that wing and putting a guy. We already know that a Tanev would have great already has good chemistry with Lowry, and there's no reason why he wouldn't have good chemistry with Nino Niederreiter. Their games are, kind of similar to an extent. I feel like now that you have Tanev, you can plug him in, and we're starting to see him get plugged in and just really electrify that bottom six. And I think that that's the area in particular where we're going to have to look at these trades, down the stretch with the lineup, is what, how they're going to fit and how the chemistry is. Like, I obviously, I'm still a little disappointed that the Jets didn't go out there and make a big swing for that guy, but, Iafallo is playing great hockey since Tanev's got here. Like, that third line with Morgan Barron, Iafallo, and Tanev has been electric. Like, for a fourth line, I'm really noticing their presence out there, and I really liked. I'm liking what I'm seeing from them. I feel like Morgan Barron's finally getting his step back, and he's looked really good the last 3 games, and I like that. And I think that shows that Arneal finding ways to get these guys going again. Mason Appleton, a guy that's been struggling. If you can maybe shovel him out and play Tanev up on that line with Lowry, because Lowry is super versatile. We even know that he has chemistry up there on the second line this year with Ehlers, so you can play Lowry anywhere. You have more flexibility with the bottom six as well. Nino Niederreiter is just Mr. Consistent. He can play with pretty much anybody in that role. It gives Arneal a lot more flexibility, and I think that in this Rangers game, for example, as well, you saw the Rangers team that was hungry and fighting, and the Jets at times probably wanted to be more offensive. I feel like they would want to get more going. At times, they still played a really damn good game, and and Kupari going through concussions right now and being injured, I think, as well as really opening things up for certain areas, and then having Kupari and Gustafsson as depth, again, good solid depth. Like, I have no problem with these guys being extra depth. I think going into the playoffs, if those guys were your number 4 seed in Gustafsson, it would be a little worrisome. I like Gustafsson, but I don't think he's that guy. The top scorers on this team are going to be the ones that lead offensively. We know that. We've seen it all season long. That top line has been electric, and they've been the goal getters, as well, obviously, with a guy like Nikolai Ehlers on that second line, who has been incredible, who's finally on the first power play unit and has been electric there as well, and kind of just shot so much life into that first power play. I think that you have a lot of you've just got a lot of flexibility in this lineup, and we've seen it all season long. And coming out of the trade deadline, watching these last couple of games, I'm really liking what I'm seeing. Like, I'm not seeing a bad team. I'm not seeing a Jets team in years past that have shown a lot of weaknesses and cracks, down the stretch post an All-Star game that really is worrisome. Like, I just don't see that this year. Like, even last year, after the additions of Toffoli, after the additions of Monahan, there were times where the Jets just did not look sharp, and that to me was worrisome. This year, not so much. Obviously, there's still time left. We're gonna have to wait and see, but coming down the stretch, I have faith in Nemestikov in that second line spot. Obviously he's got his offensive issues at times, but I really do like what he brings to that line and the chemistry he has with Ehlers and Perfetti. When they are going and the puck can be moving really well between all 3 of those guys, they move the puck well. And I know Chevy probably wanted to go and find that second line center, but at the end of the day, when you look at the way that the Jets lineup is, you look at these last couple of games, you look at the results, I think that, the big thing going into the playoffs and the big thing coming down the stretch is going to be how Scott Arneal and the coaching staff adjust the lineup and finds the best version of the Winnipeg Jets, because going into last year's playoffs against the Avalanche, the Jets were on fire. Like, they were on an 8-game winning streak or whatever to end the year, and then they lose in 5. And I think one of the biggest things we can look at from that series in retrospect is the fact that when it came down to, lineup decisions, Rick Bowness really fumbled down the stretch in the regular season and then into the playoffs. Like, Cole Perfetti only played 1 playoff game in round 1 last year. Now, I know he had his offensive, woes at times, but that's just crazy when you think about where he is now and, even where he was last year and the points that he put up last year. And I just think that that was a big issue that Bowness, kept showing last year. And Arneal's shown that at times this year that he can be stubborn with the lineup, but at the same time, the Jets have maintained a winning, elite record. So, why tweak something, even if there are some flaws there? Why tweak it and you have to constantly experiment? I understand that logic, but, with these limited amount of games left, with these additions made, with these, with extra guys that can kind of play anywhere that you can plug into the lineup, obviously not in the top 6 or in the top 4, for example, but, you have a bit more flexibility. I want to see Arneal experiment. I want to see them, really tweak this lineup and find the best version of it, because I think that this team is pretty damn good. And I think that, you know, if you just shuffle a couple things around, this team could be even better than what we're seeing already. I really believe that, and I love the moves that have been made. You know, the last couple of days I've been really thinking about that, and I do like these depth moves. I think they're solid. I think obviously there were different guys available that I like personally as a fan more, but when I look at these moves in retrospect with the lineup and what else was available on that day that teams got, I'm happy with it. And I think come playoff time, this Jets team is looking deep, and they are looking exciting. Now, obviously, it would be nice to have that shiny number 2C or a shiny new, you know, second pairing or first pairing defenseman. But at the end of the day, we have these depth players. We have an elite lineup already. We've got guys that are hungry, that want to, you know, prove the league wrong. And more importantly, we've got the best goaltender in the world. So I have faith. I think all of you should too. Buckle up. It's going to be a hell of a ride. And I personally can't wait for playoffs. The whiteout is going to be one hell of a time this year. So make sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Instagram if you haven't already. Turn on notifications. Peace, love, and positivity as always. Go Jets, go. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one very, very soon.
When I write shit, yeah, type shit. Hey yo. Behind the mic or on the NPC is where you find them. Fucking waste of life, you should've died in a condom. 17 days, your whole shit beyond 2 weeks. I grip the mic and blow the spot like plastic. Then bomb atomically, the lyrical anomaly. Bitch, I'm on one. Yeah, you fucking with the wrong one. I wrote this shit backstage in an arena. Peppin' Jordan, sipping Pellegrino.